Good day to you, Professor Vivian Alice here. Well, now, in my role as a Professor of Oral Studies, I do come into contact from time to time with people completely removed from my own normal circle of influence. You see, I want to dispel the myth that people such as myself are permanently ensconced in our ivory towers and have very little to do with what the popular press refer to as the real world. I wonder where it is, this real world. Have you ever been there? Fascinating. Anyway, I digress. To the point of nausea, as one of my students pointed out the other day. However it may seem, I am in fact very firmly in touch with what's going on in the real world, and the economic downturn that we've heard so much about recently has reminded me of a short period I spent attending a global economic and banking conference a few years back. I was hired by a very large international banking corporation for a fee which frankly made my eyes water. And now I know why they were so happy to give me so much filthy lucre, because I discovered money doesn't mean anything to bankers. The only real way to understand their worldview is if you imagine yourself living in a rather nice suburban home, somewhat like mine, and you had a very large lawn, and some workman chappy fellow comes up your drive and knocks on your door and says, I will fix your washing machine for 200 blades of grass. Well, you'd laugh, wouldn't you? You would guffaw to such an extent that you possibly soil your undergarments. It would be quite hysterical. You'd say to him, here, have 2,000 blades of grass. It doesn't matter, I'll simply grow some more. Well, that is exactly what money is like for banks. It doesn't mean anything to them because they can simply grow some more. I didn't know that. Did you? They actually grow money using our debt. Isn't that clever? You see, we borrow money from them, and that enables them to officially increase their figures by a ratio of 9 to 1. Now, I was never terribly good at mathematics. It was not my strong suit, so to speak. The English and oral studies I was flew at. And believe it or not, I was quite good at rowing in my youth. But the one thing I do know, and I've been checking my figures just to make sure, the thing I do understand is if the bank lend me, say, $1,000, they are then in a position to officially state to the banking authorities and the government of their country that they are now in a position to lend a further $9,000 to other people, because they are banking on the fact that I will pay them back the $1,000 plus the interest, which runs to about £9,000 over a 20-year period. So they have £9,000 to lend, and they suddenly have £9,000 more. They have made money, as simple as that. Now multiply those figures by several billion, and you can suddenly understand how they can afford such vast buildings all over the world, and they can afford to pay someone such as myself such an extravagant fee for merely waffling on at one of their conferences. It's a foolproof system, apparently, totally foolproof. Funditus bellatro argumentum. Now I listened to these people very carefully. I was fascinated by their view of debt. Now, I personally was merely there to give them guidance on oral studies, which, believe you me, some of them really need it. They might be very good at maths, but they could barely speak. Anyway, but that aside, I have to admit that I learned a great deal more from them than I believe they learned from me, which is, I find, a common experience when I'm dealing with a one-on-one tutorial with one of my gorgeous students. Oh. However, yet again, I digress. Oh, I'm so sorry. But during a lull in proceedings at this conference, I did have a little chat with a very, very smartly dressed young corporate chappie, and I asked him how he could be so sure that his so-called foolproof system would never fail. And he said to me, as long as people keep borrowing money, we shall make a mint. And he laughed, because as we all know, although it is the government of whatever country that actually prints the money, the paper stuff that you'd find in your purse or wallet, it is the banks who truly control the money and are in a position to create more. And as we all know, beyond any shadow of a doubt, the banking system is beyond the remit of any government, regardless of size or power. And so we come to the present day, when due to the bank's apparently daft policies over the last few years and a frantic attempt to make yet more money, people have stopped borrowing so much. It's become much harder to borrow money for many, many different reasons. One of them is because we're all shitting ourselves and we won't be able to pay it back. I find it very amusing. And so suddenly all the banks come to us and they say, oh dear, we've gone broke. Oh, we've really made a bit of a mess and we need to be bailed out. And so they ask the government, can you give us several $1 trillion in order for us not to completely collapse and bring down the economy with us? And you know what we said? We said yes. Here are several $1 trillion of hard-earned taxpayers' money for you to bail yourself out of your daft decision-making over the last few years, you greedy little shitters. Trillions of dollars. There you go, you funny little banker man. There we go, we'll just give it to you to dig yourself out of the ghastly hole you dug yourself. Eximius, novus, singularis. Now, as fate would have it, I'm due to go back to Switzerland shortly to attend yet another international corporate banking conference. And you know what? Even though apparently we're in the midst of a huge economic downturn, they've offered me an even bigger fee. This time it is almost embarrassing. Isn't capitalism wonderful? Well, there we go, boys and girls. That's all from me. Thank you so much for listening to a Tristis Senilis waffle on. I have been Professor Vivian Alice, Oxford University. Marvellous. Would you like me to do a turn to this camera? Would that help you? Very well. And in your purse or wallet, oh, worse or wallet. There we go. There's a little Freudian slip for you. I'll do that one again. Of danger, of fear, of something. Oh, fuck, I've ballsed it up, and I was so sure I knew what I was saying. By very large, to be honest, fuck.